The US NTSB chief has called out the Wall Street Journal as well as the Reuters articles claiming that Captain Sumit Sabharwal flipped the fuel cutoff switches as premature and speculative, and has also said that the NTSB fully supports the AAIB's public appeal. Now, this means that the NTSB has said that it is too early to conclude and that speculative reports should not be made. Well, I have my colleague Vishnu Shom as well as Tanishka joining us on the broadcast. Vishnu, of course, you've covered the entire incident extensively. What is your assessment of this?
Good morning, Reed. Well, I think it's an important statement which comes from the NTSB chairperson at a time when there's been intense reporting around the world, particularly in the West, in the last moments of AI 171. And there have been several questions asked about why there are leaks which are taking place at a time when the investigation is very at a sensitive stage, and that there are questions and important ones which have been asked. Significantly, India's AAIB, our Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau, issued an appeal day before yesterday, hitting out at reports which had little pieces of information, but perhaps didn't reflect the overall process of the investigations going on. And now the NTSB chairperson, Jennifer Homendy, says, and I quote, recent media reports on the Air India 171 crash are premature and speculative. India's Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau just released its preliminary report. Investigations of this magnitude take time. We fully support the AAIB's public appeal and will continue to support its ongoing investigation. All investigative questions should be addressed to the AAIB. So essentially, they don't want to take questions from the AAIB about the crash. They say they're directed to the AAIB. In fact, when we've gone to them, they've said the same to us. But I think it is also significant that they've not denied anything which has been spoken of in multiple media. It's not just Reuters and the Wall Street Journal, but it's also in European media, Italian media, which have come out with striking details. The NTSB statement doesn't say that that is wrong, right? Those facts which have been brought out, but they do say it's premature and speculative. And I would ask, where are these leaks emerging from? Because some of them say that there are government positions which have been drawn in the US in terms of a preliminary assessment of what went wrong, and then they go to specify the potential role of the pilots. The NTSB seems to be saying that, look, we're not involved over here, and we back this process. So let's see what finding emerges of this. At the end of the day, there needs to be transparency in a finite period of time.
Absolutely, Vishnu. You've mentioned that, of course, these are all speculations based on the preliminary report. From your understanding, what are some of the gaps, that the report has when it comes to, understanding what went down?
I'm not sure at this juncture the report, the data has lapsed or anything of that sort, but the preliminary report, had they released 10 seconds of conversation in a critical phase of the flight, the cockpit voice recorder transcripts of the conversations between the pilots, then perhaps there could have been an end to the speculation on the role of the pilots. They've not done that. They have confirmed that it was one of the pilots who transitioned, one of the pilots who asked the other pilot whether he had transitioned that fuel switch from the on to the cutoff position. So that obviously raised a whole lot of questions on the role of the pilots. And Western media have then gone beyond that. They've quoted sources, or they've attributed information to sources who they say have actually seen the cockpit voice recorder recordings or flight data recordings, on the basis of which they've spelled out in fair detail the potential or the alleged role of the pilot in command, who was on the left-hand side. It was the pilot flying was actually the co-pilot who was sitting on the right-hand side in this particular occasion.
Right. Thank you so much, Vishnu. Tanishka, Vishnu's also talked about, how, of course, a lot of blame is being pinned on the pilots. Of course, the Western media talking about how, what went down. Of course, they have their own theories with respect to that. I want to understand from you, how are pilot bodies reacting to this?
We do know already that the Airline Pilot Association of India has very strongly come out in terms of this and have made several appeals to the media as well, especially international media, to not get into or to not peddle speculative reports on the basis of this AAIB report in the first place. The pilots associations in India and the president as well, we've spoken to Captain Sam Thomas earlier. They've all said that all they demand for is a transparent investigation process, and that if some line pilots could be involved in the investigation process, at the very least as observers, mere observers. So at this point, the Airlines Association, Pilots Association, is indeed thinking of judicial intervention. They are demanding a legal probe at this point. However, we're yet to see as of this moment if there are any petitions that have come about with respect to the report. They do believe that the whole narrative that shifted the blame onto the pilots is completely wrong, and it is wrong to give out such unfound character judgments with respect to pilots and their entire profession, considering that they're giving in and putting in such hours into the profession. We do understand that internationally also, the International Global Pilots Association has also come out in the support and has similarly called the report premature and said that it would be wrong to draw any conclusions as of this now, especially wrong to shift the blame onto the pilots.